Hey guys, James here, how you doing? So I was planning on doing a video clarifying my stance on the slut-shaming issue because I've had a few people challenge me about it on the last video, but I'll be leaving that till tomorrow now. I've got a few things I think I can add to that discussion which haven't really been brought up that I'm aware of. Instead, I'm going to be responding to a video called A Short Thought on MRAs by Suicide for Celluloid. If I bring his name up again, I'll just be calling him Celluloid because that's quite a bit of a mouthful, and that video was in turn another response to one of Steve's videos. So Celluloid made two claims in that video. The first one was that MRAs are just dealing with first world problems. Well, for that I have to first define what a first world problem is, and hopefully you'll agree with me, Celluloid. So a first world problem is something that's so petty that only somebody in the first world would care about it. For example, my girlfriend bought me a white iPhone but I wanted a black one, or something ridiculously petty like that, when obviously somebody in the third world would be just happy to have an iPhone full stop, or they'd rather have food or something. When it comes to some of the MRA issues, we've got workplace fatalities, men being the overwhelming victims of nearly all forms of violence, being falsely accused of crimes and receiving longer sentences for the same things, higher incarceration rates, homelessness, genital mutilation. I'm pretty sure that all of those issues would be things which somebody would care about if they're in the third world and they're victims of any of those things. And all of those issues are extremely heavily gendered, and even more so in virtually every third world country. The second claim he made was that the men's rights movement is necessarily Eurocentric, which I interpret as meaning that outside of the Western world, women's issues completely overshadow men's issues. Like there's just no competition there at all. And certainly the men's rights movement is focused on the Western world, just like feminism is, and just like every other activist group is, but there certainly are men's issues outside of the Western world. I can understand how somebody would think that they're just inconsequential given the way the media portrays Africa and the Middle East, and certainly there are many, many, many women's issues in those countries. But when it comes to the men's issues in those countries, they are simply ignored. For example, the Huffington Post, along with hundreds of other news outlets, reported that 3 women are murdered in South Africa every day, and this is the absolute worst gender violence in the world. But what we're not told is that nearly 2 men are killed in South Africa every hour. Then, of course, genital mutilation. The UN categorically denounces female genital mutilation as a horrific practice and should just be completely outlawed. Completely 100% agree there, but we're not told that every country where female genital mutilation happens, the rates of male genital mutilation are either equally high, if not higher. And the UN actively supports this to try and reduce AIDS based on some extremely shoddy research. Then we have corrective rape. Yes, the corrective rape against lesbians is absolutely horrific. We very rarely hear that it also happens to gay men, and the few places which have taken notice of the fact that corrective rape happens to gay men, they don't refer to a men's issue, they refer it as an LGBT issue. So corrective rape is considered a women's and LGBT issue, rather than a men and women's issue, or simply a gay and lesbian issue. And we see that a lot when it comes to men's issues. How often do we hear stories like 200 people were killed, including 5 women and children? When it comes to the men, they're not referred to. It's not referred to as 195 men were killed. No, it's they're referred to as workers or police officers, firefighters, gays or soldiers. We don't view men as a gender group in that way. We refer to men based on their occupation or a particular subsect of the demographic. Whereas whenever women face trouble, they're simply labelled as women. And I don't think that this is merely accidental. Celluloid also mentions Saudi Arabia. And yes, of course, women have a fucking shitty time over there. And I often wonder why there isn't more of a feminist focus. Most of the time I hear feminists bring it up, it's not because they seem to genuinely care about it. It's used as a type of silencing tactic against MRAs when they simply have no arguments left. You think men have it bad? 2 words: Saudi Arabia. Even if I was to grant the premise that Saudi women have it orders of magnitude worse than the men, this in no way invalidates the problems which men face in the Western world, or anywhere else for that matter. This is simply an appeal to worse problems fallacy. But let's have a look at the gender problems in Saudi Arabia anyway, just for the hell of it. And as I've said many times, when it comes to sexism, predominantly it's that women are protected, but at expense of their agency, whereas men are simply treated as disposable. Now, this is treated as very, very well evolutionarily, but it's completely redundant today. And MRAs oppose traditionalism just as much, if not more, than feminists do. So, some of the issues they've got male guardian provisions. Women are protected at expense of their agency. Men are forced to protect them at risk to themselves. There's also many Saudi women who want to keep these provisions. I'm not sure whether or not more men than women support the idea, but yeah, that's certainly oppressive to both sexes. You've got honour killings, and these happen to men as well. A friend of mine was threatened with this because he wasn't able to fulfill the ridiculous requirements of his girlfriend's psychotic family. You've got sex segregation. This happens to both sexes equally, of course. Dress code. Women have to cover their bodies because men are viewed as potential rapists. And the restrictions on women in education, work, and economic rights, which aren't quite as extreme as most Western people make them out to be, but obviously are still very, very oppressive anyway. These all interconnect in a way that basically means that women find it very difficult to be self-sufficient, but at the same time men have no choice but to be providers. And when it comes to those issues, they both affect men and women quite heavily. And yeah, there's certainly a lot of women's issues there. But also, over there, only 6.6% of prisoners are female, and in a country where adultery is heavily punishable by law, it really wouldn't be surprising if there were some very high rates of false rape allegations over there. It's not simply a case of men oppressing women, it's a case of the people at the top basically just shitting on absolutely everyone else. So that's about all I've got to say for this video. Thanks for watching, comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.